JD Vance is live in Minnesota speaking. Do we have the link? Let's take a look. I'll dive into that. I'll fucking get into that. I'll cover it. Where's that at? JD Vance is in Murderapolis. Anyone got the link?
Able to do their jobs without being harassed, without being doxxed, and sometimes without being assaulted. That's totally unacceptable. And that's one of the things that I want to send a message to is, yes, come out and protest me, protest our immigration policy, but do it peacefully. If you assault a law enforcement officer, the Trump administration and the Department of Justice is going to prosecute you to the fullest extent of the law.
Shut up,
I wanted
bitch.
to show some support for these guys who, frankly, are operating in a very, very tough environment. I heard a lot of stories today about that I think drives home just how chaotic the environment on the ground here has already gotten. For example, did you know that within the last, I think, week or so, maybe even more recently than that, you had a couple of ICE officers who were off duty, who had been doxxed online, who were sitting and having a meal at a restaurant in Minneapolis when a bunch of agitators showed up, locked the door, made them feel like they were in danger for their lives, and then, of course, it was federal law enforcement officers who had to come up, lower the temperature on the situation, and actually get those two off-duty officers to
the
a point of safety.
Gestapo's fifis
Now,
were
imagine,
hurt.
if you would,
The Gestapo's
your
fifis were
life and your
hurting.
perspective on law enforcement if you can't even go to a restaurant without some
How dare
agitators
you
walking
hurt
the
my
door and making you
feelings,
feel
my
like your life is in
feelings.
danger. That
I
is
got
the
a
environment
boo-boo.
that's
Get
been
the
created,
fuck
I
out of
think,
here, man.
of very, frankly,
That's
far
crazy.
left people,
That's crazy.
but also by some of the state and local law enforcement officials who could do a much better job in cooperating and working. And by the way, I'm not talking about the cops who these guys told me on the ground. The cops are very sympathetic to what they're dealing with.
What the fuck's going on here with this
Local
goddamn video?
Elected law enforcement
What is happening?
officials who could do a lot better job in making their lives a little bit easier, and in the process, they would make the lives of all Minneapolis residents easier, and that's what we want. We want to be able to enforce the immigration laws on the one hand, while on the other hand, we want to make sure that people in Minneapolis are able to go about their day. And I want to say just one last point on this. So I heard from a business leader today who told me a very tough story, and I think so much of what's gone wrong in Minneapolis is people not trying to understand the perspective of somebody else. Try to understand what somebody else is experiencing, whether they're a law enforcement officer or anybody in the community here in Minneapolis. So they told me a story about this manufacturing facility.
Fake story alert.
Where an
Fake story alert from sympathetic business owner, small business owner.
Went into the manufacturing facility. All of a sudden, an illegal immigrant shows up. They don't know it's an illegal immigrant, and then a bunch of ICE officers descend. Now, these people just want to go to work. They want to go to work safely, and now all of a sudden, there's a major law enforcement operation happening right outside their place of business. Now, from one perspective, I certainly understand why a business leader or why an employee would say, "Whoa, what's going on?" It's a little scary, no matter your position in life, if a bunch of cop cars show up and they're arresting somebody. Now, the additional context is that we know that people online have been encouraging illegal immigrants that one way they can evade arrest is by showing up at a legitimate place of business, making it impossible for these guys to actually enforce our immigration laws. So while I can understand the perspective of somebody who doesn't want to see an arrest happen at their place of work, I can also understand the perspective of our immigration enforcement officers who have to do their job and can't allow a heckler's veto over our immigration enforcement. And so much of what's gone wrong is the failure to do that. And here's the point. We can do a good job of enforcing our immigration laws without the chaos, but it actually requires the cooperation of state and local officials. If you look at blue cities and blue states, red cities and red states, you go to Austin, Texas, or Memphis, Tennessee. You go to the state of Texas, obviously a very red state, or the state of Tennessee, a very red state, but you've got blue cities within those states, you do not have this level of chaos. The reason why things have gotten so out of hand is because of failure of cooperation between the state and local authorities and what these guys are trying to do. We have a ton of resources, a ton of ICE agents in this city right now that I would rather us not have. I'd love to send those guys home. They're not even doing targeted immigration enforcement. They are trying to protect ICE officers who are doing immigration enforcement, because when a crowd surrounds them and these guys call 911, the local officials, the local cops have been told to stand down.
Then leave. You're a bitch. You're a bitch. By the way, this is literally reverse Tim Walz, okay? This is part of the reason why I think J.D. Vance sucks and will never make it, okay? Because he's far too liberal coded, okay? The way he tries to, like, justify this through legal language and tries to fucking reach out to the hearts and minds of, like, liberals, like, no, man, you can't do fucking fascist standpoint theory from the perspective of the Gestapo, okay? Excuse me, you're doing a bodies in spaces. Have you realized how toxic your behavior is when you got ICE agents that are trying to conduct door knocking operations in your neighborhood? Like, that's so, stop bitching. Stop fucking bitching. Just leave. Just fuck off and leave. Okay?
The temperature and lower the chaos. That's a problem. Here's another example.
Does J.D. Vance know Jester Maxing is the new meta? He should be having fun. Instead of trying to do the stiff arm move, he should be doing Jester Maxing, just clowning and having a good time.
We have a criminal migrant who is a sex offender. And let's say that we've got to go and arrest that person who, Democrat or Republican, wants a...
Cops. That's who arrest that person, not ICE. There is already a fucking function of law enforcement, okay? If there is a sex offender, and by the way, wouldn't be talking about sex offenders if I was J.D. Vance. Let's be fucking real. Donald Trump is the president right now, but like, and he is protecting all of the elite pedophiles. But having said that, if there's a sex offender that must be arrested, cops do that, okay? Not ICE. The entire point of ICE is not to actually arrest anybody, really, is to handle paperwork violations, okay?
And try to find where this criminal sex offender is today. The local authorities have been told, do not cooperate. So these guys are trying to go out and enforce the law. They're trying to arrest sex offenders, but they're trying to do it in an environment where local officials have been told, do not help them, do not provide intelligence about where these sex offenders might be. This is disgraceful. And there are a lot of things that all of us could do better to lower the temperature, but the number one thing that I learned today is that the best way to facilitate reasonable enforcement of the law, but also to lower the chaos in Minneapolis, would be for state and local officials to cooperate. Now, I will say, on one final positive note, I actually think that there's some hope, some reason to think that there's going to be better cooperation in the weeks and months to come. I think that because I've talked to some of the local officials here. I think there are reasons to believe that these people are going to step up and actually ask the cops to protect our ICE officers when they're being assaulted, who are going to ask the local courts to cooperate with getting criminal sex offenders out of our community. That's a good thing. That's the good news, and that's something I'm going to work on when I get back to Washington. But please, if you're a local official, if you're the mayor of this town, if you have any influence over those people, just tell them to cooperate. Because we could have immigration enforcement operate as smoothly and without the chaos that we see in Austin, Texas, or Memphis, Tennessee, or even rural parts of the state of Minnesota. All we need is a little cooperation. I guarantee you, we're going to do the best to be professional, to respect people's rights, to not do anything that we don't have to do in order to enforce immigration laws, but it would make our lives a lot easier.
37-year-old lady in the face.
A lot safer, and it would make Minneapolis much less chaotic if we had a little bit of cooperation from the state and local officials. With that, I'll shut up and take some questions. Thank you, guys.
Vice President Vance, a local school district here is alleging ICE agents detaining a...
Bro, they're putting fucking him on Kamala alert, by the way. He's doing janitorial duties right now. This is Trump is literally making him oversee the least popular aspects of this admin. It's awesome. It's awesome.
Well, I'm proud of the fact that we're standing behind
just as Joe Biden gave the borders our duty to Kamala Harris, which was like the least popular position you could be in if you're, working in a Democratic administration. The vice presidential job here is very important. If you think J.D. Vance is going to be the leader of this movement when you're done, because you ate too many aspirins or because you got too tired to be president and you want to retire in I don't know, Saudi Arabia or whatever, like if you think J.D. Vance is going to be continuing the movement, you shouldn't be making him do this shit. This is shit cleanup job.
Alien father, the father ran. So the story is that ICE detained a 5-year-old. Well, what are they supposed to do? Are they supposed to let a 5-year-old child freeze to death? Are they not supposed to arrest
fucking do
an illegal alien in the United States of America? If the argument is that you can't arrest people who have violated our laws because they have children, then every single parent is going to be completely given immunity from ever being the subject of law enforcement.
He's literally saying the 5-year-old was
detained
detained as bait to draw out the father, and that's good. What are we supposed to do? Not do that? Yeah, the answer is yes, you fucking asshole.
I've looked into personally where I say, wait a second. We don't want ICE arresting American citizens. They're supposed to be enforcing the immigration laws against illegal aliens. So then I look into it and I find out that the American citizen who was arrested took a swing at an ICE officer. You can't have that happen. And of course they have to defend themselves. And of course they have the right to detain somebody who assaults a law enforcement officer. Now, this is my point. Do we want these things to happen? Do we want these arrests to be so chaotic? No, we don't. These guys want it least of all, but if we had a little cooperation from local and from local and state officials, I think the chaos would go way down in this community.
President!
Go ahead.
After the Renee Good shooting, sir, the administration seemed to suggest...
Yeah, well, you can go next.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I thought you pointed it
No,
out.
that's fine. I'll take both.
After the Renee Good shooting, sir, the administration seemed to... After the Renee Good shooting, the administration seemed to suggest that ICE officers enjoyed near complete immunity. But today you told the Washington Examiner that when appropriate, the administration might take disciplinary actions against ICE agents. So is that a change of opinion? And if so, why the change in tone?
No, I didn't say, and I don't think any other official within the Trump administration said that officers who engaged in wrongdoing would enjoy immunity. That's absurd. What I did say is that when federal law enforcement officers violate the law, that is typically something that federal officials would look into. We don't want these guys to have kangaroo courts. We want them to actually have real due process, real investigation, because again, sometimes they're accused of wrongdoing, and it turns out when you learn the context, they didn't actually do anything wrong. But of course we're going to investigate these things. Of course we're investigating the Renee Good shooting, but we're investigating them in a way that respects people's rights and that ensures that if somebody did something wrong, yes, they're going to face disciplinary action, but we're not going to judge them in the court of public opinion. I've spoken at length on this particular case. I think that Renee Good's death is a tragedy. I also think that she rammed an ICE officer with her car. So the tragedy here is multi-layered. The tragedy is there was a misunderstanding. The tragedy is that Renee Good lost her life. The tragedy is that you have ICE officers who are going into communities where they're worried that if they call 911, no one's going to come to help them. That is what produces.
Yeah, those are varying degrees of different tragedies. It's like saying, well, you know, the Holocaust was a tragedy. Also, I stubbed my toe the other day while I was going to kill someone. Like, those are not comparable levels, okay? One is a fucking unlawful murder of an American citizen. The other is ICE getting scared when they're engaging in unlawful actions.
I'm pro-life, and I'm very excited to speak there. I want to talk about local law enforcement, but, you know, I mean, look, I am... As a child, I saw people in my family get arrested. It's terrible. It's heartbreaking, it's chaotic, it's traumatic for the kids. I can recognize that, and I can recognize that we got to support these kids, while on the other hand saying that just because you're a parent doesn't mean that you get complete immunity from law enforcement. And I think we have to hold both of those thoughts in our head at the same time. We've got to be sympathetic to the kids who are caught up in some of these enforcement actions. We've also got to say we have to enforce the law without bias, with fairness, but we've got to enforce the law.
J.D. Vance said,
Mr. Vice President!
J.D. Vance said, listen, I'm an adult, but I was once a child too. And as a former child, I think it's okay to detain children right now, to lure out their fathers and lure out whoever else you want to lure out in an effort to detain all of them and deport them.
St. Cloud. Yeah.
After the incident, the mayor said that ICE did not communicate with them that they were in the city for a major operation. The police chief
Sorry,
did not know
5-year-old
about the
baby,
operation at
you
the
broke
time.
the law.
Could you talk a little bit about proactive communication with local law enforcement?
Yeah, it's one of the takeaways. I've talked with these guys before we came on the stage, but during our roundtable and some of the other conversations we've had, communication, we absolutely want to ensure there's good communication between federal officials
The oh-so
and state and
moral
local
Hasan.
officials, and I'm sure that we can do better on that. We absolutely want to make sure that we
This
are
is my favorite. Okay,
communicating.
where
That also
you know
requires
woke is
people in the
back
street, and that's
because now these guys have turned back to the, oh, you're just virtue signaling. Like, we've gotten back to 2016 era idiotic conversations where it's like, I recognize that you're actually signaling that you're a moral person and that my side is actually immoral in this conversation. So instead of entertaining the notion that maybe my side is doing something unimaginably wrong. I'm just going to turn around and say, you're such a bitch, dude. You're such a bitch for thinking that ICE agents shouldn't fucking detain little babies, 5-year-old babies, in an effort to lure out a bunch of family members so they can do a dragnet operation in a fucking house. I know. Imagine, close your eyes and imagine China doing that or something, okay? And then you can maybe have a consistent position on it. Fucking idiot. These are the same people that go, oh, if our state is doing it, then it's, then it's actually good. Like, think about it, dude. Conservatives literally will be like, oh, what about the Uyghur Muslims? And meanwhile, we're doing like Xinjiang shit in fucking broad daylight in America in your backyard. And you're like, nah, it's awesome.
How much is this tactic being used?
Yeah, so I saw that story, and the story is like so much that I read in the mainstream media, it's missing a whole lot of context, and when you appreciate the context, it makes sense. No one is saying, look, there are exceptions. For example, a crazy exception, if somebody is fired at from inside a house, they don't need a warrant to go inside that person's house. There are very narrow exceptions to the warrant requirement where law enforcement officers don't need a...
Yeah, a fucking serving someone paperwork is not a justification to violate the Fourth Amendment. It's not the equivalent of being shot at. Yeah, no shit.
Really has proposed in the Department of Justice is that we can get administrative warrants to enforce administrative immigration law. Now, it's possible, I guess, that the courts will say no, and of course, if the courts say no, we would follow that law, but nobody is talking about doing immigration enforcement without a warrant. We're talking about different types of warrants that exist in our system.
Yes.
Typically what happens...
An administrative warrant is nothing. It's nothing. It's like a McDonald's manager, okay? What the fuck do you mean? That doesn't mean anything. It's not a valid warrant to actually go into someone's home. And everyone knows this. You went to law school. You were a JAG lawyer. You know that it's not fucking legal. Shut the fuck up.
We're never going to enter somebody's house without some kind of a warrant, unless, of course, somebody's firing on an officer or they have to do something in order to protect themselves.
Follow up on that. Do you believe that you can forcibly enter with an administrative warrant, or would that be a violation of the Fourth Amendment?
Well, our understanding is that you can enforce the immigration laws of the country under an administrative order if you have an administrative warrant. That's what we think. That's our understanding of the law. That's our best faith attempt to understand the law.
God, he's trying.
Again, this is something
dude, this is what I mean. Just say, of course we're gonna do it. Like Trump would be like, of course we're gonna do it. What the fuck are you gonna say? Due process is too difficult to follow.
It's done through the administrative law system. We're gonna continue that practice.
It's not
just
a legal
as they did
gray
in the Biden
area, guys.
administration or any other
JD Vance knows it's not a legal gray area. He's making it seem like it's a legal gray area. It's not. It is a clear-cut violation of the constitutional protections afforded to every single person on U.S. soil, whether documented, undocumented, whether natural-born U.S. citizen or naturalized U.S. citizen or not. This is a matter of constitutional law. He knows that it is illegal. He knows. He's like, oh, well, I signed a piece of paper that said I'm the best boy, so obviously you have to follow through on that piece of paper that I signed on my own. Get the fuck out of here.
All the federal government to use the military for local law enforcement operations. Right now, we don't think that we need that. Now, the president could change his mind. Of course, things could get worse. But right now, we think that federal law enforcement officers can do the job of federal law enforcement. Now, what I do worry about, again, is if the chaos gets worse, if more and more ICE agents start getting assaulted, if other law enforcement officers start getting assaulted, that would be a real problem. But again, we have so much federal law enforcement resources here right now. We have so many people here that we do not want to have here. I do not want so many ICE officers in Minneapolis right now. I mean, good Lord, it's really, really freaking cold outside. But they're here not even to enforce immigration laws, but to protect the people from the rioters. That's an absurd state of affairs, and we wouldn't need it if we had a little bit more cooperation from the Minneapolis Police Department. Again, the Minneapolis Police Department, my understanding is that the actual beat cops on the ground, they would love to help out, but they're being told by somebody, I don't know if it's Mayor Frey, they're being told by somebody not to cooperate at all. What kind of a person tells their local police don't protect somebody if they're being assaulted by a rioter? It's crazy, and it's got to stop. Yes.
President, earlier this week, local law enforcement accused federal agents of racial profiling. Why are there so many U.S. citizens being caught up in this operation?
Well, I think your question assumes something that's not necessarily in evidence, which is that when there are American citizens who have been caught up in some of these enforcement operations, very often it is people who have assaulted a law enforcement officer. They're not being arrested. because they violated the immigration laws. They're being arrested because they punched a federal law enforcement officer. That is a totally reasonable thing. Now, to the accusation of racial profiling, look, it's something that we take very seriously. We will take accusations of racial profiling back to Washington. We'll certainly look into them as they come up.
The accusation came from cops.
That's going around and looking for
I feel
people
like
who
they know
violated
racial
the law
profiling
based on
when
skin
they
color.
see it. You
They're
know,
looking for people who violate.
it's like it's like getting yelled at by like the legion of pedophiles for engaging in pedophilia. Okay, like this is the thing that they do. All right, big dog. When a fucking off-duty cop says, "Hey, I'm being racially profiled," I'm gonna take that seriously because they know from their own day-to-day experiences what racial profiling looks like because they're the kings of racial profiling. Okay.
Then the local officials say, "Oh my God, these guys are doing widespread targeted enforcement operations," when in reality, we would love to just go to one house. The local officials won't.
Also, we've seen the videos where like the most Hispanic man wearing a mask is talking to another Hispanic American being like, "Where are your fucking papers?" And the guy goes, "Why are you asking me that?" And the dude goes, "'Cause you have a fucking accent." I'm sorry.
Is that a concern?
We've seen the fucking videos. We know they're doing racial profiling. The Supreme Court actually defended that racial profiling.
Officers are being targeted, and they described it as, quote, civil rights violations in our streets.
So I saw one story about this and one local police officer who said this. And look, certainly is it a concern? Absolutely. The first thing we have to figure out is whether it happened or not. And then if it happened, whether there is a good explanation or a bad explanation. And of course, if somebody violated the law, if somebody racially profiled, if somebody violated the rights of one of our fellow citizens, that is something we will take very seriously. What I also would say is that many of the most viral stories of the past couple of weeks have turned out to be, at best, partially true. So we want to try people based on reality, based on the truth, based on context. We're not going to prejudge people just because of viral social media story that turned out to be half false.
Mr. Vice President, a quick question about the roundtable you just had. I presume that happened. Did you invite anybody with an opposing point of view to get an idea of why people are upset here? And just as a quick follow-up, have you reached out to Governor Walz at all in an attempt to turn down the temperature?
So I haven't talked to Governor Walz on this particular trip. A number of members of our administration, I believe our chief of staff, spoke to the governor and has been in constant contact with his staff over the past week. We've been in my office in constant contact with people here on the ground in Minneapolis. There were certainly people at our roundtable with opposing views, and look, I don't even know, whether it's public, but yes, we met with people with opposing views here at the roundtable. I wanted to get a perspective from everybody, but also, of course, offer my opinion that with a little bit more cooperation, we could lower the chaos. We're going to keep on doing that. If Governor Walz wants to call me, we'll absolutely continue talking. I will say that my sense of this situation, having talked to these guys for a long time, is this is primarily a law enforcement issue. This is the Attorney General. This is the local mayor. This is all of the organs of local.
It's pretty crazy that he's saying this. Meanwhile, the Department of Justice has already launched false cases on every single local politician.
And really helping out.
Like they are doing lawfare on the one hand and doing like illegal domination,
locally, and this
like a domestic occupation with a federal agency that's completely out of control on the other hand.
Cities from here.
Well, right now we're focused on Minneapolis because that's where we have the highest concentration of people who have violated our immigration laws, and that's also, frankly, where we see the most assault of our law enforcement officers. I mean, our plan is very simple. If you assault a federal law enforcement officer, we're going to do everything that we can to put you in prison. It's very simple. And most of these protesters, as much as I may disagree with their politics, most of them have been
you're right.
peaceful. But
this is literally the Reddit moderator, but with more hair.
If you go and insult a federal
actually,
officer, we're going to try very hard.
If you hurt our ICE agents' feelings, we will kill you.
Respect people's rights. Respect people's rights to worship. Respect people's rights to do their job without being assaulted. If you follow that basic principle, the Trump administration is doing everything that we can to protect your rights. But if you go after somebody, if you assault somebody, if you make a 9-year-old girl cry because you walked into her church and harassed her, we're going to go after you with every single tool that we have.
You just defended the cop. You just defended the ICE agents detaining a 5-year-old to kidnap a bunch of other people. What are we talking about? Oh, a 9-year-old was crying in a church. Bro, shut the fuck up. Y'all literally do ICE raids on churches. You arrest pastors. What the fuck are you saying?
America. significant reductions in violent crime. The reason why we have less violent crime is really two reasons. Number one, because we're enforcing.
Bro, they're doing ICE raids on schools. They're tear gassing children, and then they turn around and go, a 9-year-old's feelings were hurt. A 9-year-old's feelings were hurt when people were protesting a fucking ICE field office guy who also happens to be a fucking pastor. Suck my dick. You're out of your dang mind, brother.
We can to lower the temperature, and we would like federal and local, or excuse me, state and local officials to meet us halfway. So much so.
Are you saying that they're not perceiving it correctly? Are you saying that they're not seeing that it's the tactics or the presence of the officers that are?
Look, I'm sure that people are seeing a lot of things that would make any member of our national community feel very upset. But I also think that if you understand this in context, this is the inevitable consequence of a state and local government that have decided that they're not going to cooperate with immigration enforcement at all. In fact, they're going to aggressively not cooperate. So here's a basic illustration of this. If you are an ICE officer and you have to arrest a person who's committed assault and is also an illegal alien, but the state and local officials won't help you identify that person, many of the things that people in Minneapolis are seeing that give them pause, that frustrate them, that worry them, that make them feel like things are too chaotic, many of these things are coming from the fact.
I think his style is so fucking insufferable. I can't get over it. It's always like he's trying to say Heil Hitler in the nerdiest, most like liberal coded way possible, and I can't stand it. Like, there are different types of villains in this administration. Like, Stephen Miller is just straight up trying to do like Adolf Hitler speeches, but he's such a fucking wormy little nerd that he's like, we must secure a meaningful existence for our white children. That's right. And like JD Vance does something even worse than that, in my opinion. Like if Stephen Miller is like the soy Reich, JD Vance is like, has adopted the language of the worst academic liberalism while trying to justify heinous crimes against humanity. Like, everything is Phalenial speak. Everything he does is like, actually. I hate it. I hate it so much.
And the mayor's offices, but why have you not been able to speak to them directly? Have they not been willing to do so?
Well, look, I have spoken to some of the people in Minnesota directly. I spoke to some of them today. I've spoke to others in the past. And again, our staff has been in very direct contact with pretty much every official with any influence or any power in Minneapolis. But no, we're not trying to send a political message. We're trying to enforce the law.
Like, guys, we have to do this. We have to kill you. We have to go door to door and demand your papers. Actually, have you heard of law and order? Like, that's what he's doing
across the United States of America. There's been a very unique, very Minneapolis-specific reaction to our enforcement of federal immigration laws. What I'm trying to do here today,
unfortunately, this shit works on conservative-leaning liberals. They would just they wouldn't really care about immigration in the past, but now they're saying shit like maybe these illegals are a drain on us. No,
look, I don't need Tim Walz,
you're
Jacob
so
Frey,
wrong.
or anybody else to come out and
that
say
is literally not reading the room at all. No, conservative-leaning liberals are way more horrified at the prospect of the federal government doing this kind of like genuine domestic occupation. Are you kidding me? No, the polls do not show that reality at all, with the exception of the most psychopathic coalition that you have ever seen in this goddamn country, Republicans, of course. With the exception of Republicans, ICE's approval ratings are underwater with everyone. Independents are saying fuck ICE. Democrats are saying fuck ICE. The only people that are saying we love ICE is like 58% of Republicans, which is kind of low, honestly, even for Republicans in general. So like, no, most people are looking at the situation and seeing the horror that you're all seeing.
Right, pepper balls. Beyond that, what is the federal government's role in turning down the temperature?
You're losing even conservatives right now because
says
like
that its own officers have been cooperating with ICE all along, handing over criminals once they serve their sentences to ICE officials. Can you concede that there is some cooperation with the state?
Yeah, look, if
you're
I was
wrong.
To list the 5 agencies,
brother. You can say I'm wrong all day, every day, but the fucking polling shows a different reality. Okay. The polls show a different fucking reality. Yeah, you got majority everywhere across the board saying that ICE's presence in communities is more harmful than helpful, okay? You got the Emerson poll that just came out where 57%, the majority think ICE's presence in communities is more harmful than beneficial. Poll released 9 hours ago. But the poll I'm referencing is another recent poll that just came out where ICE's approval ratings are underwater as an agency with everyone, with the exception of Republicans. This is what I was actually trying to show you. ICE's net approval is minus 27 for all, with Democrats is minus 91%, which is why the Democratic Party not actually taking fucking a more stringent approach, more strict approach to ICE and punishing ICE is insane to me, but expected because they're fucking pussies. Independents at minus 41%. With black people, it's minus 71%. With Hispanic people, it's minus 41%, which, by the way, this will never not be funny. I'm sorry. Oh, my fucking God. Like, that's why I laugh whenever you see, like, another federal agent being like, I'm a Black Panther Party member, and actually, ICE is not our deal. We don't care about ICE. It's like, you're not. You're a federal law enforcement officer that is undercover, that is presenting himself as a fucking Black Panther person. You're not Black Panther Party material. Let's be fucking real, okay? You can't even abide by the anger that black people feel towards this kind of federal incursion in every community in black and brown neighborhoods. You're just trying to do fucking propaganda. Anyway, white people is at minus 15%, which is expected. But even then, look at that. White people at minus 15%. That's crazy. This is the most reactionary subgroup in the fucking country, and it's at minus 15% approval. Okay? Net disapproval overall, except for, ding, 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 Republicans at plus 58%. This is what I was talking about. Okay? There is a very real fissure in this country where the overwhelming majority of this nation state is frustrated with Trump, is frustrated with their economic conditions not improving, is frustrated with what Trump is doing, all this like fuck shit overseas where they're like, why do I care about fucking taking Greenland? Suck my dick. I don't care. Fix the prices, right? And then on top of that, when they see this kind of domestic maneuvering, when they see the federal law enforcement agencies like heavily militarized federal law enforcement agents coming in and going door to door demanding to see people's papers, they go, what the fuck is happening? This sucks. This sucks so much dick. With the exception of Republicans. And the fact that only Republicans are at plus 58 approval for ICE means that even Republicans are actually now saying enough is enough about ICE. Do you understand? You spoke with one of the 58% of Republicans just yesterday, the Bobs of the world? Yes. And with like 3 fucking questions, even the most ultra MAGA guy like Bob was willing to concede on key issues like education, free education. Even though he was like resilient, even though he was resistant, he was understanding. He was open-minded to that, even with healthcare. Like, that's what I'm trying to say. And Bob is a unique figure. Bob is ultra MAGA. He's the most MAGA, right? And a lot of you have a family member like Bob. That's the reason why you think everyone is like Bob. Every MAGA person is like Bob. They are 20% of the country, okay? They are 20% of the country. This is true. 20% of the country, give or take, is like Bob. That's insane. That's insane. 20% of the country is in a fucking cult, okay? There's no other way to put it. Having said that, that's only 20% of the country, okay? And it's not only 20% of the country, but it's also a 20% of the nation that is fairly old for the most part, or, you know, some of them are lumpen proles. Haley posted that you made some headway with her parents. I never thought when my family and I started the Necessary Conversation pod that we'd be invited to chat with Hasan D. Piker, but here we are. My team watched live from the Hive today. I actually think Hasan made some headway with my parents. I'm indebted. Now we could send some Hive merch to our favorite political commentator. See, I told you. I mean, they probably will go back to the same business as usual politics when push comes to shove. But remember, it doesn't even matter, right? It doesn't even matter because it's only fucking 20% of citizens. No, not even voters. I would say 20% of citizens in this country. I'm being as open-minded to like how large this group is. So if you're constantly surrounded by people that are representatives of that 20%, you think everyone is like this. Every right-winger is like this. Most right-wingers outside of that 20%, you can have a conversation with and get them to understand that it's completely ridiculous what the Trump administration is doing. Okay? What does that black statistic mean? I am just wondering. What do you mean? It means black people are more woke than everyone on average all the time, regardless of what the fucking media tries to present it as. That's it. There was never a moment where black people in the United States of America were going to be on board with ICE agents going door to door demanding to see fucking papers of other black Americans of Somali descent. Like, not even just black Americans of Somali descent, but like anyone for that matter. That's it. Yeah, woke was literally created by black people. Exactly. It's just so stupid that you see all this stuff where like you do see an expression of I think upper middle class black liberalism on Twitter quite a bit, and there is this like academic liberalism that comes from some black liberals in general that are doing well by and large, and that's all you hear from like root.com article writers and stuff like that will say like, you know, misogynoir is a real problem, like it's the biggest problem like in the black community, and it's mostly being championed by black men who are violent and aggressive, like shit like that gets recycled all the time, that gives white liberals a permission structure to also shit on black men. Like people that have that kind of mentality are the ones you only fucking hear from, and that's not the case at all. Okay? That's not the case at all. That's not how this works. There's 0% chance that that black people are going to see what this government is doing currently and go, yeah, no, this is not exactly what we have fought for in the past, like our, you know, grandparents fought for to give us a crumb of civil liberties. It's just stupid. That's why I always tell you guys, do not fucking pay attention to like people who are saying like, oh, well, I didn't vote. I voted for Kamala Harris. You know, those are the Free Palestine voters are bullshit. Like, I'm tired. Black people are tired. Like, all that stuff is ridiculous. Black people have always been at the forefront of social justice in this fucking country, okay? Always. Historically, out as a matter of survival. And that survival instinct has not gone away because the conditions have not changed. Certainly they've improved, but they haven't changed. So whenever someone tries to say like, oh, as a black person, we're staying out of this. We voted for Kamala Harris. We're staying out of this. It's like, you're not a white woman in the suburbs. Like you can try and stay out of it, or you can try to get other people to also join in on the we're staying out of this meta, but it's not going to happen. Most black people are not going to stay out of it, okay? Because they recognize this is a matter of survival. White supremacy impacts everyone, okay? We aren't a monolith. Yes, black people, of course, are not a monolith. But if there's one thing that is almost monolithic of contemporary black existence or historical black existence in American society, it is understandably fighting against white supremacy. Because it's a mechanism of survival. Anyway, Open Presence, thank you for another 100 gifted subs. Thanks, chatter. Thank you for purposely misrepresenting this take. No one is a monolith, and black people aren't a monolith either, but they are all black. And if you're black in a white supremacist country, then obviously you're going to have a very different understanding of white supremacy because you've experienced it. That's it. Anyway, you're doing the whole butt thing. No, I'm not. It's not. No, it's common fucking sense, chatter. What are you talking about? Every black person is black. And therefore, every black person will be at some point, whether inadvertently, whether they recognize it or not, and most people do recognize it, victims to white supremacist systems, white supremacist constructs. That's just how it works. Okay? I'll give you a great example of this. Candace Owens. Candace Owens is a white supremacist through and through, right? Like, she does white supremacist commentary. She is a white supremacist. That's her output. That's what she does for the most part. Now, that might have changed a little bit in the recent years, but like, that's what she did her entire career. Candace Owens also was a victim of a hate crime when she was growing up. She actually successfully sued the Connecticut Board of Education because she was victim to a hate crime that caused her to have an eating disorder. Okay? I don't see color, unlike Hasan. I have no clue if I'm black or not. Anyway. LARPers are about to jump in this, pretending that they're black and have a counterpoint. Please ignore them. Yeah, I will. I will continue to ignore them, just as I've always ignored when people were like, well, you don't understand. Black people are tired. They're done. They're done with this conversation. They're seeing themselves out of this conversation. Okay, well, you know, the conversation is not seeing them as people outside of the conversation. Something I noticed in that conversation is Republicans are fed their talking points by state-run media like Fox and Newsmax, and most of the people aren't just equipped to combat that messaging since there's no real opposition media. Yes. Well, that's the role I try to play to the best of my ability.